Good afternoon and welcome to today's Adweek webinar, where we'll be sharing an inside look at Johnnie Walker Princes Street. And really what we're going to be talking about is really creating the ultimate brand experience. In today's case, of course, Johnnie Walker Princes Street is Johnnie Walker's new brand home in Edinburgh, Scotland. And we're going to hear all about this from the players who've been involved in this project. I'm Stuart File, Vice President of Branded Content at Adweek, and I'm going to be your host for today's webinar. Before we begin, I just want to take a few minutes here and make sure that everyone is familiar with the features of our webinar platform and also knows what to expect from our event today. Our presentation should go somewhere in the 30 to 35 minute range. It's going to be almost exclusively video conversation among our guest speakers. I'll introduce them in just a moment. But there are even a couple of, just again, as I'm sure you see today's title slide, that's really pretty much our entire slide experience today. So you don't have to worry too much about slides, and we're going to take the slides down in just a few moments. Again, our presentation will go about 35 minutes. Afterwards, we're going to have plenty of time for audience Q&A. So I do want to invite everybody here, if at any point during the presentation, if you have a question for our speakers, just use the question tool that you should see on your screen. It's pretty much underneath the video window right now. So go on in there, use that to submit your questions. We're going to get to as many as we can following, again, our live panel discussion. It's not too late to invite your colleagues to come and join us today, and we really would love it if they would. We sent everyone a final reminder email for today's webinar about 15 minutes ago. In there, you're going to find a link to the registration page, so grab that link, share it with your colleagues. Hopefully, they've got enough time to register and join us live. Still, have them register anyway, even if they can't make it live, because today's webinar is being recorded. It's going to be available on demand, and we're going to send a link to that on-demand version to all of our registrants later this afternoon. So check your email about 3:30, 4 o'clock Eastern time. Usually we make the slides available. I actually do have a PDF of the slide deck. It's got a few photos of Johnnie Walker Princes Street. If you want to have that and you want that as a takeaway from today, you're going to find that PDF in the event resources area. You should see that tab on your screen. We just want to make that available. But again, it's not much more than a couple of quick photos of the execution. More importantly, I just want to remind everyone to please check out the Adweek webinar calendar, www.adweek.com/webinars. This is one of actually the fourth webinar we've done this week. We've got 3 next week, and the week after that, and the week after that, full schedule. See what's coming up, sign up for an upcoming webinar, check out the entire archive of on-demand webinars in there as well. Again, we know that you get value out of these, and we also know an awful lot of people are asking you to attend these things. We hope that you continue to get value, and that is always the goal of what we provide here, that you're going to come away, again, maybe entertained, but most importantly, better informed. So let me just quickly introduce our speakers. Again, really excited about today's webinar. 3 great speakers, all the parties involved in the Johnnie Walker Princes Street activation. So from our sponsors today at AnyRoad, we're very happy to be joined by Daniel Yaffe. Daniel's the COO and a co-founder of AnyRoad. He's the author of a book about whiskey, Drink More Whiskey. Also is, again, co-founded AnyRoad, which is a platform that enables brands to leverage data to scale the impact of branded experiences. That's what we're talking about here. From Johnnie Walker, we have the head of experiential, Rob Maxwell. Again, he's running the experience at Johnnie Walker Princes Street. He's done things like this, again, before he even joined Diageo to the Johnnie Walker brand, and he delivered world-class experiences and built brand advocacy for brands such as Jameson and Absolute, again, doing that as part of the Jameson Distillery Bow Street team. And then Christian Lachelle, who's the VP and Executive Creative Director over at BRC Imagination Arts. He's their creative chief, specializing in experiential design, tourism, sustainability, revenue, operations, project delivery plans, and creative storytelling approaches for, again, award-winning brand experiences. So before I bring our speakers up on screen, I'm just going to play a 1-minute sizzle reel, and then I'll be right back to bring our speakers up, just to give you a quick 1-minute sense here of what Johnnie Walker Princes Street really is. So let's launch that video, and here we go. All right, so let me bring our panelists up here, Daniel, Rob, and Christian, and let me disappear. And Daniel, over to you for our webinar today.
Great. Thank you so much, Stuart. I really appreciate you having all of us. I'm very excited to jump in with both Rob and Christian. I want to start off about storytelling. Obviously, you have built the Johnnie Walker experience at Princes Street to tell a story about the brand. I'm curious, what is the importance of storytelling, especially when it comes to branded experiences? Either one of you can jump in on that first one to kick off the conversation.
Sure. Rob, do you mind if I'll go first and then you can amplify?
First, yeah,
sure. You see it from the well, storytelling is, how we understand the world. It's the things that make it, a difference for a brand when, I'll give a perfect example here for Johnnie Walker. I mean, most consumers are at a bar and they're looking at the back bar and they're trying to make a choice on what drink they're going to go with. And the way that we approach these projects is by visitors coming and spending some time with us. They get to not only see that bottle as not just a bottle anymore, they see it as a story. They understand the narrative. They understand the purpose of the brand. They have made a personal connection with a friend. And I would say the thing that's more important than just story is emotional engagement. A lot of people talk story, but not a lot of people deliver story. And I'm talking about things that move the pulse and actually drive emotions. And that's the key thing that we look at. Is it's not just about creating an experience and not just telling any story, but really about a story that can be transformative. And you can see that difference from a visitor coming in and by the time they leave feeling completely different and changed, their attitudes, their actions, everything. And Rob, if you want to speak to that in terms of what you've seen on the few projects that we've worked on together, which is, all three that were mentioned, Jameson, Absolute, and Johnnie Walker. So.
Sure, yeah, I think you need to hit the nail on the head, Christian. So, I mean, now so more than ever, people are craving experiences and human interactions. So it's one of the common trends that I've noticed over the years working, as you mentioned, in Jameson, Absolute, and now Johnnie Walker Princes Street is the thing that people remember is it's the people, it's the storytellers. So you can have the most amazing building and the most incredible tech, which thankfully we do. But it's the people that really bring the story to life, and they do that through immersive storytelling, but also the warmest hospitality. And we've already seen that positive sentiment coming through in absolute droves from the people that have been coming through the doors at Johnnie Walker Princes Street so far. They've been calling out all of the amazing team members that have made that experience for them so special. And as you mentioned, Christian, when they go away, they're not just going to see a bottle, but they're going to remember that experience and they're going to remember that story.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Rob, would you mind telling us maybe a little bit just about the experience? Like, when did it open? There might be some people who are less familiar with the experience in Edinburgh. I think that'll help just place the conversation today a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. So Johnnie Walker Princes Street opened to the public on the 6th of September. So it's an 8-floor visitor experience that is bringing the story of one of the most popular Scotch whisky brands in the world to life. It's the centerpiece in Diageo's £185 million investment into Scotch whisky tourism, which is the largest single investment in the industry. It's a fully immersive building crowned by 2 amazing rooftop bars serving the most incredible food and drink. We've got multiple experiences in the building. So whether you're starting out your whiskey journey as a curious person, or whether you've been enjoying whiskey for many, many years and consider yourself a connoisseur, we have an experience for you. We've got a dedicated event space. We've got an amazing retail opportunity as well. And we also have some private client spaces in the building. And we also have a Learning for Life Academy, which is an amazing feature to have in Johnnie Walker Princes Street, which is our commitment to, I suppose, our corporate social responsibility. And in our Learning for Life Academy, it's a dedicated hospitality training program for people to get them back into work. So it's 7.5. It's an amazing opportunity, amazing building with so many different experiences for everyone, as I mentioned, whether you're starting out your journey or further along.
I love that. I think one of the things that you touched on a little bit upon is that some people are just starting off their journey and some people are further along. And we always call this like the contextual data of who these consumers are before they step foot into the building. I know that at the experience that you all have built out, you've leveraged personalization, right? And like AI powered mass personalization. This is amazing. I mean, this is really the forefront of what branded experiences are doing. And I'm really curious to hear more about that. Maybe Christian and Rob, you can tell us a little bit more about what you're doing, how you're leveraging both our platform, but also some other technology to do that in mass.
Yeah, I'll kick it off with where it started, and then maybe Rob, you can talk about how it came to life. Early on in the conversations when we were developing the strategic planning for the project, it was very important for us to get to have visitors come in and to immediately sort of have a great whiskey moment, right? And I always use my mom as an example because she's not going to enjoy a dram a dram at like 10:30 in the morning. I mean, she's just not a whiskey person. So there are kind of a couple of challenges that we were given by the brand team. One was to bring more people into the category. So you have a first kind of liquid to lips moment. And then the other piece was to also let people understand that you can have whiskey any way you want it. And that it's not, there's these so-called whiskey rules around you can only have it this way, or you can only do it that way, and you have to be in this setting, this occasion only. So we were truly trying to break down some of these barriers. So that got us thinking about, how do we create mass customization and personalization in an experience that's driving, hundreds of thousands of visitors a year. And while we were doing this research, there was a bit of work with the R&D team around a platform that they had around sort of just a flavor print, which was this algorithm that they had been developing for many years around being able to put out some questions and through AI, basically be able to hone in on a specific flavor profile for visitors. And they were using it very lightly. They had just started to do this for like malts.com. We said, well, wouldn't it be great if we could take that platform, make some adjustments to it, and actually give personalization to every single person coming through the door on the main journey flavor. And if we do that, then we can, figure out the right way to basically take a group of 6 and everybody in that group can individually have a completely different experience. So that was really, really important for us because we know whiskey in general is it's a harder category than, let's say, beer. A lot of people just sort of will have a beer, but whiskey is kind of a journey, depending on where you're at. We kind of meet the audience where they're at and take them where we want to go. And so that personalization, that was an aha moment. And immediately we said, okay, that's going to be a big part of what we're going to do from the start. And then, of course, once Rob came on to the team and Daniel, you were involved, it was like, okay, well, then how do we bring that to life? So I'll hand that up to you guys on bringing that to life and what we've seen from the visitors.
Great. So, yeah, by using this AI technology, we're able to, and working with Daniel and your platform, we're able to get people to answer a series of questions before they ever visit Johnnie Walker Princes Street, or they can do it when they get there. And by identifying people's flavor preferences, we're then able to segment them into a particular journey when they're there. So you could be doing an experience with 5 or 6 of your friends, and you could all be getting a personalized experience, and you will all have cocktails that are, I suppose, most suitable to your own flavor preferences. So it's amazing to be able to personalize on such a mass scale. Whiskey is it can be such a complex category as well, and not all whiskey tastes the same. So you might like one whiskey, but you might not like 4 more whiskeys. So it's about trying to really personalize the experience and not just give everyone one drink. It's trying to make sure that we're giving people different options in different flavor categories, and then within those categories even giving more options to them during the experience. So it really truly is the definition of a journey of flavor, because you're discovering that perfect flavor for you.
And Rob, just out of curiosity, what's going on with the audience? I mean, some of the feedback that we've gotten from visitors on that.
So the feedback's been fantastic so far. People have been blown away by not just the drinks or the building or the staff, but it's everything to do with the food, the cocktails, the team, the AV. They love it all. And when it comes to the drinks, as you mentioned, you wouldn't, if you were starting off to taste a vodka or a gin, you wouldn't taste it straight, right? You'd mix it with a nice tonic, or you'd mix it with a nice mixer. So we wouldn't like to introduce people to whiskey drinking it straight as a dram. So I think it makes it really, really accessible by showing people that it can be mixed and enjoyed in beautiful cocktails. So the feedback so far from people has been fantastic. My favorite quotes, and I've heard it a few times already, is, wow, I never thought I would be able to drink whiskey, or I never thought I would like whiskey, but that cocktail tastes amazing. So I think it's just, trying to educate against some of the perceived barriers to whiskey, like you mentioned before.
That transition is amazing. That's pure magic. I think that's why Christian does what he does. But we'll come back to that in a second, because I think that conversion into a loyalist or into a fan of whiskey is massive. And I think that sounds like it's probably a big part of the goal of the investment. Before we get into that, though, I'd love to hear, maybe Christian, on your end, what types of storytelling techniques are you using? Rob mentioned that there's a lot of different experiences that are built into the building. I'm curious, what have you been using or leveraging to really engage the modern audience? I mean, obviously, Scotch whiskeys have been around for ages and ages and ages. There have always been distilleries that do tastings. I know for a fact that you've been to many of them and done their tastings. I mean, I'm curious, what innovations or approaches have you used to engage the audiences?
Well, we've been sort of looking at, a lot of different approaches just based on, again, there's a whole wide range of different consumers that are coming through and visitors from all over the world. And one of the things that we know is, kind of meeting them where they're at. We don't have production on site. So similar to the Jameson Bow Street, which actually doesn't have production on site either, we knew we needed to kind of take people on a journey. In order to do that, we've used a lot of different technology we've leaned into some technology and projection and senses through basically a choreographed series of rooms and experiences. So the way that we approach it is that every room tells a unique part of that story, but it builds to this sort of choreographed moment of an aha or a climax, right? But one of the things we leaned in early on with Edinburgh was, we're in a great city that does incredible festivals. It's, for example, the Fringe is one of the largest theatrical art festivals in the world. Edinburgh is just a home of, book festivals and film festivals. And that level of storytelling in theater is something that we really wanted to grab onto. And so early on, we decided that we wanted to create a bit of real theater. So one of the things in the main journey that I think people really love is that in the second room, we have this room called Come Walk With Us, which is really telling the story of Johnnie Walker, which is this incredible 200-year history, but done in a very sort of close-up theatrical way with performers and travelators and projection and movies. And it's all of that in combination in a very almost like close-up theater where it's very intimate. So you can really feel the performers. And I could tell you Rob's team is just incredible. We've got this amazing cast, and they really bring it to life. And people really feel that. Some people come out of there some people don't even know the story and they come out like they have goosebumps and they really feel
Super
it.
powerful.
So we wanted to lean into the theatrical aspects and of course do use different techniques in each room. It's not, you have to constantly wake up the audience, so there's different techniques, but we wouldn't do that same experience like for a connoisseur. Like, we're all whiskey fans on this. Like, I know Rob and I know you, Daniel, we've all had many whiskeys together in different types. And so for that cask experience that we have in the cellar, which is in the basement, we leaned into looking at like the original cask cellars and in Kilmarnock, where the original Strand Street warehouse was. And we developed a whole different program there where we're tasting straight from these specialized casks. So it's a different form of storytelling. It's a different elevated experience. We created an all new blending system that is bespoke to that space. And we work with now Emma Walker, who's going to be the new master maker, and all these great makers to create these custom blends in the room. So it's really unique. So it's not a one size fits all. And we use different techniques depending on the audience and what we think will really resonate with them.
I love that. We're showing a couple of slides of a few of the rooms. It's absolutely, I've heard it's even better than the photos show. I cannot wait to get over there. Great. I'd love to get into a little bit more about the impact of the experience, or how, why all this investment. Rob, I'm curious from your end, what was the goal? What was the goal of this massive investment in the brand home? What are the outputs? Or obviously Diageo, has known that this is, more than just building a very cool attraction. I'm curious your thoughts.
Yeah, well, I suppose, there was a number of goals and objectives and aspirations for this project. And, I'm just one small part of this huge, incredible team that helped bring this Johnnie Walker Princes Street story to life. But in terms of some of the goals and objectives, we want Johnnie Walker Princes Street to be the most desired, the most enjoyed, and most talked about brand home. We clearly want to create a positive brand return, a positive commercial return. And we also want to set a benchmark in sustainability and community engagement. So sustainability was really at the heart of everything we did at Johnnie Walker Princes Street. And every decision that was taken always had sustainability first and foremost. So how could we make it more sustainable? We don't just want to be the best whiskey in the world, but we want to be the best whiskey for the world. And we also wanted to position Johnnie Walker as a vibrant, accessible, and desirable international whiskey. And as Christian has already mentioned, we wanted to educate against those perceived whiskey category barriers. So we wanted to break down the doors of all these preconceived barriers. So things like harsh taste, stuffy image, complicated rules, intimidated spirit. You can't make cocktails with it. So we wanted to make sure that we could, break down these barriers and bring the story to life in a really fun and engaging way. We want Johnnie Walker Princes Street as well to be the physical representation of the Johnnie Walker brand. So when we have all of these brand advocates making their pilgrimage to Scotland, and when they walk through the doors of Johnnie Walker Princes Street, we want that to represent the brand that is, advertised globally. And want to celebrate togetherness, especially now more than ever. We want people to come together and have fun safely, obviously. And surprise and delight people. We want people to come in, and we want to make sure that we're setting expectations of an amazing experience, but we want to make sure that we're actually exceeding those expectations. And we do this through, as Christian mentioned already, creation of this emotional experience far beyond a traditional whiskey process store. We also wanted to offer different entry points. I've already mentioned there's people at different stages of the journey. So whether you're an expert or whether you're just starting out, we wanted to make sure that we had an experience for you. So no matter where you are in the journey, you would have a great experience. And those were some of the key points that we had. Christian, I'm not sure if there was anything you wanted to add from a BRC point of view.
No, I think that's, at the end of the day, it's about, creating a great experience that people, it's about creating memories. So many people over the last year, it's been year and a half, it's been really difficult for a lot of folks. And just seeing the joy again of people coming together in a safe way, but really enjoying stories and bonding and connecting, over a nice communal moment or over a cocktail. at the end of the day, it's great to see that the spirit of people coming back together. And we don't do these things for ourselves. We do these projects in the spirit of the brand in order to kind of bring it to life in these really fun and meaningful ways. And that's the joy of it. And you can see just the smiles of people going, yes, we're back. We're doing some things. And we're not other, it's great to see that as a journey. Can't wait to see the international tourists coming back. And obviously there's a big push by Visit Scotland, and there's a big community element to this too that you can't underscore. I mean, one of the other things I would say in addition to sustainability was to make sure that we also balance tourism out in the city. The West End, you have the high street, and you have obviously the Royal Mile and St. James. There's a lot of stuff going on in the city, but bringing the West End back, you can see investment. There's a lot of investment now happening in the area. We hope that investment just makes all boats rise. So additional hotels, additional keys. I think today there is a brand new distillery, our brewery that was announced that's going to be coming in, like the first brewery in 150 years. So you can see the city's got this momentum. We just hope that we're playing a part of that as a catalyst to hopefully everybody sees, okay, if we invest this, then others can invest in it, and we can all sort of, rise together in a very positive way. And we've seen that for decades on the projects that we've worked on, that they do help everybody, especially local communities.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
We also wanted to kind of create this mile marker zero, if you like. So we want people not just to come and enjoy Edinburgh, but to enjoy the whole of Scotland. We've got some incredible distilleries and women and men working in these brand homes all over Scotland. And we wanted to tie the story of Johnnie Walker into the four corners. So the Kylila, Clynelish, Glenkinchie and Cardew, and all of the other brand homes and distilleries that we have throughout Scotland. So Johnnie Walker Princes Street is just the beginning of the journey, and we're hoping to funnel people out into all of these amazing locations within Scotland. It's got so much to offer.
That's awesome. Christian, you mentioned that people go through and you see them smiling, enjoying it. Of course, we know that the modern CMO is not going to be measuring experiences through smiles. I'm curious, partially because you've worked on this project since the very beginning, and partially because you've worked on a lot of other brand homes. I'm curious, what do brands get wrong about measuring the impact of brand homes? I know that you've done a lot of research on this. I'm curious, how you guide companies early on when they say, we're looking at investing in a new brand home or a new brand experience.
Well, I think, a lot of, what we've seen, some folks get wrong and oftentimes are actually called in to help actually fix projects. I would say they'd call after they've been open for a couple of years. In fact, sometimes it can be open only a couple of months and they're already looking for some adjustments because maybe they didn't get something, maybe they didn't get something right. And that's fine. I mean, it is a bit of a test and adjust and making sure that you do get it right. But I would say the big thing is a lot of folks have, like when we started with Heineken years ago, that CMO at Heineken, when we were first starting that project, Heineken experience at that time was not really a profit center, wasn't making any money. In fact, it was basically a marketing loss for Heineken. And we were able to, through storytelling, repositioning that project, we were able to move them towards much more of a profit model. And that really helped the overall market. They got excited about that because all of a sudden this project became its own sort of profit center within the company. And I think there's a couple of things like that. I mean, oftentimes people think that these tours they're just process, invite people in, give them a bit of a process, hope that they buy something. No, there's a real purpose behind everything that you do. There's a journey that you're purposely creating, and you need to understand exactly what you're trying to do with that in terms of moving the needle on the brand advocacy point of view, building loyalty, profit, bottles and bags, really important. Making sure that, that you're not doing harm. Also, you're growing sort of word of mouth and you can extend. Now we're seeing a lot more extension of these experiences into hybrid experiences and going live from a location. And, that also has like a back and forth and people going, oh, wow, it's live from Princes Street at the, in the label studio. And, now all of a sudden, like when you're in town, you're like, hey, I want to go see if they've got any events going. So I think that you have to be very, right from the very beginning, and every brand is different and every organization they'll have different things that they're trying to achieve, but get those goals down really clear and make sure that that's always your North Star. And then make sure that in return is make sure you have a platform that can measure it. Because the most important thing is you can say all these KPIs, right? You can say, we want to do X, Y, and Z. We want to do attendance. We want to do bottles and bags. I think some people try to chase attendance as a measure of success. That's not really a great measure of success. Yes, sometimes it's great to get more people, but it could, if the experience is too mass and people aren't enjoying themselves and they're not getting the effect that you want, then I would say you probably want to scale that back. That's one of the mistakes we see. But make sure you can measure it. And the other thing that we see that is a mistake is once they've come into your home and they've spent time with you, you want to make sure that you've built a relationship. How do you follow up with people and keep that relationship going? And again, we see that time and time again where brand homes or spaces or even tours, they know that they had X amount of visitors, but they have no idea who they are. There's no relationship with them. There's no follow-up program. So even though you've had this amazing memory, you're not able to really track and stay in touch. And that's super important. I think for an investment of this scale, you need to be able to stay in touch and you need to extend that experience well beyond the visit. And if you're not doing that, then you're not really leveraging it as much as you can. And that's really what we're seeing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. A lot of brands do come to us for that, trying to understand how to drive loyalty from branded experiences. But that reminds me of a framework that we have of one-dimensional metrics and three-dimensional metrics, right? A lot of brands look at one-dimensional metrics, right? How many, and we've talked about this a few times, but how many people go through the door? How many butts in seats? Maybe even where are they from? But they're not looking at what we call three-dimensional metrics for experiences, which is impact, right? Whether that be loyalty, whether that be relationships or community. So I think that's huge. Rob, anything to add on that end as far as like what metrics you all are looking at? Or I know there's a lot of data flowing through the Johnnie Walker Princes Street experience. I'm curious, what's the focus for you all?
Yeah, I was on mute. Sorry. I think Christian covered everything off really, really well there. First and foremost, we want to make sure that all of our visitors are having a memorable experience with us for all the right reasons. So for us, just seeing people walk out the door with a smile and look of amazement on their face is just incredible. As you mentioned, you can't measure that though. So we do have a number of tools that we use, including the tools we use through your platform, such as the NPS score and brand conversion. So we're really able to measure the positive impact that the visit to Johnnie Walker Princes Street is having on a person after they've had their experience with us. So yeah, monitoring that and be able to put solid data behind it is really, really important, and being able to follow up with those customers afterwards and creating that lifetime value, I suppose.
Awesome. I'm curious, maybe for both of you, how has this really started to transform the Johnnie Walker brand? Right, the brand's been around for ages. Having a physical space, building out the brand home. I'm curious to hear what you're already seeing and where the needle's moving to.
Rob, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So I suppose Johnnie Walker Princes Street, it's never intended to be an investment for today, tomorrow, next week, or even next year. It's a long-term strategic investment into the growth of Johnnie Walker and Scotch whisky. So it is one that will pay dividends in years and decades to come. And we're obviously in the very early days of that right now. Last year, Johnnie Walker celebrated its 200th anniversary, and Johnnie Walker Princes Street is going to set the course for the brand for the next 200 years. So I think it's very early days, but I think it's going to have an amazingly positive impact on the brand over the coming months, years to come. Scotch whisky is at the heart of Diageo, and Johnnie Walker Princes Street is going to be the physical representation of the Johnnie Walker brand, as I already mentioned, so that advocates can come from all over the world and experience everything that they love about Johnnie Walker.
Yeah, and I would just amplify that in the sense that going back to that Whiskey Mile Zero approach, which is this is tied to this larger tourism investment across Scotland. And you can really see a lot of visitors heading out to the other distillery experiences that we've been creating. They all link and ladder. They all have this sort of common bond. And at the same time, you're also seeing other brands really investing and upgrading their experiences. So it's just great overall. Not only is it moving the needle for Johnnie Walker, and obviously getting people to understand where the liquid comes from and how it's built and all the care and quality and dedication to sustainability. But it's also dedication to Scotland and as a whole, and really saying, listen, this is really important. It represents probably the largest export in the country. We want to grow tourism. We want to bring people here. We want to give people great quality experiences when they spend time in our home. That means that they have a real wonderful memory, and it does increase loyalty to that particular brand, again, because Rob gave me that great experience, or Amy was just incredible and she brought it to life, and boy, I feel like I really made a friend at Cardew, for example, and so that's really what it's we've seen that impact, and we're seeing it across the board, not only at Princes Street, but some of the other distillery brand homes that were open a little earlier that have a little bit more data and impact, and they're really enjoying those experiences because they're different.
I love it. Do you see people going to a bunch of the experiences that you've built up, and Johnnie Walker first or last? What are you seeing right now?
Yeah, I think the fact that we amplify some of the stories of these distilleries and brand homes across Scotland during the experience is, it's bringing to life the fact that there's so much more outside of Edinburgh, and the fact that there's so many stories and so much history in these brand homes that people are genuinely coming down to the team and asking, how do I get to Cardew? How do I get to Clynleash? So it's great, and we're hoping obviously to link all of the visits so that you can come to Johnnie Walker Princes Street, and as part of that ticket you can also include a visit to, let's say, for example, Glenkinchie. So it's about trying to create that mile marker zero effect, really, and funnel people out into the other regions of Scotland so that they can experience all of these other amazing brand homes.
That's huge. I've got one more question, and then I think we're going to go to some questions and answers from attendees of the webinar. But probably more on Christian, but both of you, I know that a pillar of the brand home has really been access and inclusion. You both have mentioned that to me in the past. I'm curious, how did you use it as a pillar to really design and build out the experience so it's accessible to everyone? What does that look like?
Well, it's a great question, and I think it's so important. Early days, one of the people on the project, Morven, who's part of the team, she had contacted a group called Ewan's Guide, which is based in Edinburgh, but they do basically it's like TripAdvisor for accessibility, and they do a lot of accessibility training as well. And we started to have conversations with them early on, and what we realized through that and some other work that we've done, I think when we worked on Liverpool, we were really looking at access, and that museum's won a lot of awards for its accessibility and programs. But we wanted to take it to a new level, and working with the Ewan's Guide team, kind of almost hand in glove from the beginning, we did things that a lot of people just won't do or haven't done yet, and we hope to be the leader in that. And that's like really understanding, for example, that these communities often actually spend more time with you, and they're often the most forgotten about. So by really creating a more inclusive and accessible experience for all, we're finding more families and more people who want to come because we have the facilities to actually do the proper care while they're there. For example, a changing place. We have one of the only changing places in Edinburgh. There's only a handful of them, but some families need more care than others in terms of being able to sort of change and sort of have an experience. And so that investment's not a very light investment. In fact, it costs a lot of money to put one of those things in, but it's completely worth it. And anybody who has a blue key who has a family can come into that experience, whether they're coming in or not, and have access to that particular facility. But even within the visitor experience, one of the things is when you're on the journey, we're in a weird building because it's actually two buildings that were kind of tied together. One was a bank building and the other was a series of department stores over many years, Ben's, Malls, and then the House of Fraser's. And we didn't want the visitor to ever feel, if you have an accessibility need, to ever feel like you need to leave the group. So even like the staircases that we built in, they, when we were working with the architectural team, we found these great lifts that just kind of come right out of the floor, and it just looks like a normal stair, But then, again, the visitors we're not breaking the experience. And the most important thing is everyone feels like they're on the same journey, and it's just seamless. And part of it also is Rob's team, who has incredible hospitality and training around making sure that everybody feels welcome. They understand that they're in a home, and if they have any concerns or any needs, they can absolutely ask a question and get the kind of service that they require. But that was built in from day one. And you have to make, the thing I would say on sustainability and accessibility is you have to make a commitment early, and you have to really lean into it. It's not something you can do. We see a lot of afterthoughts, and obviously older distilleries that it's harder and harder because they're production facilities. But if you're doing something from scratch, or if you are doing something, set the goal as high as you can, and just be inclusive to everybody that you can welcome, because they want to come, and people just, and we're seeing the impact. So, we just got the highest rating of accessibility awards in the UK from Ewan's Guide. There's only 10 facilities in the entire UK attractions that have a score of 5, and we're one of the 10 now, and that's across the entire UK. So that's big,
awesome.
Big commitment.
That's awesome. Super important. All right. Should we go to some questions, Stuart, if you're there?
I am here. I am back up on screen, I hope. And let's love to take the audience questions. They've been coming in fast and furious, gentlemen. So as I'm sure you can imagine, lots of questions. I do want to just, again, invite our audience. If you do have a question for our speakers, you should see that question tool on your screen. Use that to submit your question. We're going to get to as many as we can over the next 10 minutes or so. I just want to let you know, submit your question. Even if we don't have a chance to get to it, I always forward all the questions over to our sponsors. So there's always the opportunity for an offline response. Just also a quick reminder here to everyone, if you enjoyed today's webinar and you want to share it with your colleagues, yes, the webinar is being recorded. We're going to make that available to you. And we're going to send you a link later this afternoon. Check your email, 3:30, 4 o'clock. You're going to get that link. Share that link with your colleagues. Better yet, have your colleagues register. We will send them that link directly. I did show some of, again, the pictures that we were sharing as we were doing this. If you want to grab a PDF of those slides that we showed, just showing some of the interiors and the one exterior shot of Johnnie Walker Princes Street, you can grab a PDF of that deck right now in event resources. So keep an eye out there. So let's get to these questions. Gentlemen, and Christian, I just want to sort of start off with you. As you look at a brand home, and people are doing this, how do you actually sort of estimate the brand home's contribution to the overall brand value? I can see in a situation where this goes on, I can see as it fits in a lot of other very consumer, right? Particularly where there are brands where there is that very, brand recognition, loyal following. I want to know more about as this goes on. But again, you're the one who does a lot of this stuff, Christian. What do you sort of see as that sort of contribution to the brand value?
Well, we spoke a little bit about it, and I think the thing that we've realized through these physical experiences, and not just through a pop-up, but obviously there's a lot of different types of experiential, but the brand home itself really gives the brand a place to really bring visitors in. And it's not just consumers. A lot of times it's trade. Sometimes it's even government to government. It's a way to test out innovations and new product lines. There's a lot of ways that we use a brand home to impact the brand. The most important thing, though, of course, is building that sort of true loyalty, those kind of deep memories that then spread out through the word of mouth. And yeah, it may only be 30,000 or 40,000 or 50,000 people, but they may be, for some brand homes, but they may be your biggest loyalists. We recognized in one of the brand homes that was getting a number of visitors, and I can't speak to which one it is. When we looked at the global market, actually the brand home was their 4th largest market. And they didn't even realize that. They were busy trying to go everywhere else. And we said, listen, if you look at the scale of this place is actually one of your top markets in the world. So it's really important to treat these visitors in a meaningful way. And the other thing is markets go dark and it's harder to advertise in some of these spaces. The only place that you can meet the audience and kind of bring them deeply into the immersive world of your brand is through these brand homes and these spaces. So we see, yeah, it's about building loyalty, but it's actually a platform for a lot of other things. Like we mentioned, Rob mentioned the training academy that we're doing, Learning for Life. It's a platform for ongoing trade. We have a space in there for training bartenders, the top 1% bartenders in the world. So there's a lot of ways that you can leverage these things well beyond just the consumer face. And I think that those are the pillars that we look at when we look at the overall value for the brand. And let's face it, people wouldn't do it if they weren't having an impact. And there's lots of impact and there's lots of reward for having a brand home.
Daniel, as we use the term brand home, and I realize, it's not always a common term that people, have here. And obviously, it can take a lot of different forms. You can have an 8-story historical building in downtown Edinburgh, but it doesn't have to be that. So can you give just a couple quick examples of what they might look like, and what it might look like on brands, outside of the obvious places where something like as we've discussed today, what some of the other ones might look like?
Yeah, absolutely. We always laugh here at AnyRoad because a lot of brands call these things different things, right? There's brand homes, there's brand locations, there's wineries and factories and distilleries. There are some places call it like the cellar door if it's a winery. We're seeing a lot of brands do this all over, and even creating pop-up experiences that are not a brand home because it's a temporary home, but they're creating brand experiences in a physical location. And we're seeing this more and more, to be honest. I mean, we work with retailers. We see there are digital retailers that are creating brand homes, if you will, like the Warby Parkers of the world, that are creating physical locations and designing those locations because they know they need to have an interactive touch point with consumers. We work with Ben & Jerry's. They've got their factory tour. They don't call it a brand home. They call it their Ben & Jerry's factory over in Vermont. So there are a lot of different kinds of experiences that we're seeing, and we're seeing this accelerating, to be honest. Yeah. Christian, I don't know, might be able to add to that.
I was going to say, I was even thinking this, again, having visited Ben & Jerry's, and, it's sort of like, and King Arthur flour, right? That's the trip to Vermont as we go through brand homes. If you drive through Connecticut, right, you stop at the Pez Visitors Center right off I-95 as part of some of those things. So probably a lot of people are very familiar with this as they've gone on, but maybe not at the extent. I'm sorry, Christian, were you going to add something onto this?
I was just going to say that, and it can benefit, we talked a lot about some of the urban environments and so forth, but there's so many, brand homes and sort of, smaller breweries or wineries that are out in rural communities. We just got done having a groundbreaking in Somerset, Kentucky for a very large project there. But, Somerset, Pulaski County, that area is looking for large investment, and they've got big companies coming in like App Harvest. In Kentucky now, Ford is going to be building a $6 billion plant. So there's a lot of things happening with not only urban spaces, but you can see it across the board. And there's an opportunity again to tell a great story, bring people in, and hopefully they leave with a great memory. And they make it part of their itinerary.
Yeah, Rob, a question came in, and again, related to that, of sort of understanding, the goal here. We can see certainly the one-time visitor, but it seems like this is really geared not just for, obviously you want the person who comes in as part of that. They've flown into Edinburgh. It's the launch point onto their whiskey tour throughout Scotland. But I would think, are you looking at repeat visitors, of people who come in, who use this space so that it's, what is ultimately the vision for the brand on something like this?
Yeah, I mean, brand loyalty, we would obviously hope for people to come back and visit time and time again. That might be more challenging for people coming from the far corners in the world. Yeah. But it's not just, Johnnie Walker Princes Street is not just for the international community, it's for the local audience as well. And our journey of flavor is is the true essence of a journey of flavor. And we have so many different drink combinations on just our basic, on just our regular flagship tour, that you could do the tour every day for a number of years and have a different combination of cocktails on that tour. So, and on top of that, we have all of these other experiences, like what I mentioned. We have a whiskey tasting experience, we have a cocktail alchemy experience, we have a whiskey maker cellar where you get to draw whiskey direct from the cask. We also have an archive experience where you can delve into the history of the humble beginnings of John Walker in Kilmarnock back in 1820. So we've got so many different experiences that there really is an opportunity for you to keep coming back again and again. I mentioned already we have an amazing retail, which is updating its products quite regularly. So you can come back if you're in the market for something unique or some form of innovation, like Christian mentioned. I mentioned already the 2 rooftop bars, which are really going to set a new standard for food and beverage within Edinburgh and Scotland as well, serving the most incredible food and cocktails with the most unbelievable views of Edinburgh Castle. And of course, we have an event space where we can host multiple events. It's a really, really flexible space. So you can have everything from sit-down meals to fringe comedians to you can have artist performances in there as well. So we feel that we've got enough of an offering so that people can really see Johnnie Walker Princes Street as a destination, not just for the traditional whiskey tour, but for so much more.
Mm-hmm. As this, and I'll go sort of open here, but maybe again, Christian and Daniel, look, we all know we're in the midst of a pandemic now, right? COVID very clearly must have had an impact on this. But again, I know Christian and Rob, as you were talking about, you talked about the smiles of people sort of feeling sort of a return to normalcy as this goes on. Did COVID impact some of the opening plans and what, goes forward, just understanding sort of the shifts that people may have as their sort of anxieties of going into a place and maybe being in a crowd or something like that?
Yeah, I would say, across the board, working in tourism, whether you're a Disney park or you're an attraction or a museum, everybody who has, really visitor experiences globally have had, it's been a really challenging year. With that said, it's amazing the resiliency that you're seeing in people. And I can tell you, a lot of people realize that their bucket list, they don't have as much time as they thought they did. And, you never know when the world's going to just shut down again. I would say that there's a couple of things. Yeah, we had challenges for sure bringing the projects to life. We had to be very careful about what we did and how we did it. It definitely took a little longer in our planning to get things open, and not as much time for even getting things open where we're still in a very early kind of, process where we're still testing, adjust things. But we did open 4 distilleries in the last 12 months, or experiences in the last 12 months. We did it in a very dedicated way with great community and great, safety around all of that. And what we're seeing is people coming and I've talked to, I talked to a lot of people in the attractions industry, and the numbers are great. People coming back. Some people are going to take a little bit more time. They're not going to come back right away. Others are, hey, I've got my list and I'm getting back to it. But people are spending more. They're enjoying themselves. They're coming back again. Mm-hmm. We've got some. So again, that resiliency is something that you see, and you can see it in the arc of just looking back over the last 200 years as various pandemics and things have hit. Nothing like the human experience and the will to kind of keep moving forward mm-hmm. and enjoying life. Yeah. So
and Christian, just to put everything in context here, really quick, and I'm sure you probably have this figure at your fingertips. Can you just the value of whiskey tourism? Because as I was going through this, and I will admit, I did a little bit of Googling ahead of this, because it just sounded like, of course, there's whiskey. Like everyone I know who's visited Scotland has had part of that. But I mean, the value of whiskey tourism in Scotland is huge. Can you give a quick sense? I mean, of what that might be?
It's billions of dollars in just. I don't have the exact number, but I think it's well over $5 billion in terms of that. I know that on the Kentucky distillery side, and just in Kentucky, it's a $3.9 billion business in tourism for these mm-hmm. for these brands. So when you look at Scotch, which is a little bit more of a mature market in terms of having a lot of distilleries, You really, when you look at the distilleries in Kentucky, it's really only been the last 10 years and really in the last 5 that things have really accelerated. But, it's a huge part of the economy. You can't underscore enough how much the hotels that are in the areas, even in rural communities like, for example, Clynelish up in Brora. If people are staying up and they're going to the Brora or the Clynelish distillery, those are hotel nights. Those are restaurants that are filled in the evenings. That entire network of attractions is so important for Scottish, tourism and dollars. And there was actually an announcement today on quite a big influx in the UK in terms of additional money being spent, a lot of British pounds going into brand new experiences and upgrading infrastructure for tourism. It's a big part of the economic driver.
Yeah, I think the thing that I saw, the Scotch Whisky Visitors Center in 2019 was the 3rd most visited tourist site in all of Scotland, which I think often, and was actually climbing quite aggressively as I saw that. I know that was 2019. Again, just for our audience, just to put all of this in context for everyone of why something like this is so huge.
Yeah, like Storehouse in Ireland is number 1 attraction in all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, gentlemen, I would love to continue this conversation, and I guess we're going to have to do it over a drink because we don't have any more time right now on our webinar. So again, I want to thank the 3 of you. Just a great conversation. Again, also AnyRoad for putting all of this together for us. Just a really interesting topic, and as everything moves into experiential. Just sort of seeing what is state of the art now, how is it used, and that, it's not just simply go in and buy the brand, but, go in and live the brand and experience the brand and come away very differently. Just really have enjoyed this conversation. To our audience, again, you're going to get a link to On Demand. Share that with your colleagues. Let me just remind you, if you want those pictures of the site, you can find it in event resources. And lastly, adweek.com/webinars, our webinar calendar. See what's coming up, sign up for an upcoming webinar. Again, gentlemen, I want to thank our speakers here, Daniel Yaffe, Christian Lachelle, and Rob Maxwell. I want to thank our sponsors from AnyRoad. I want to thank our audience for taking time out of your busy day, and we look forward to seeing everyone at an upcoming Adweek webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.